Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons and the absolutely fascinating, so fascinating, um, yeah, so fascinating. The idea of the Lego Icons 10333 Lord of the Rings Barad-Dur set. The set that, in my humble opinion, wrote new canon into Tolkien's the Lego set that wrote new canon into Tolkien's world. So the Barad-Dur set actually shows us the interior of Barad-Dur, right, where the Eye of Sauron is, right. Now, what's fascinating is, why is that a big deal? Well, that's a very big deal because that doesn't appear anywhere in Tolkien's books, and it doesn't appear anywhere in Peter Jackson's um, movies. So it sets new canon. It writes new pages in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, in my humble opinion, right? And you're like, well, that's great. That does that for Tolkien, but that doesn't do it for Dungeons and Dragons. Nope, you're wrong. Here's, in my humble opinion, we're about to get a book called the History of the Making of Dungeons and Dragons, 1970 to 1977, and that will fully print the Lord of the Rings Dungeons and Dragons initial iteration. That, what Gary Gygax originally created, which was the Dungeons and Dragons and Tolkien, and Dungeons and Dragons and Lord of the Rings are one product. That used to be a question mark. That used to be a crime. Now it's set in stone, right? Big green rubber stamp from Dungeons and Dragons. Big green rubber stamp from the Tolkien estate, right? Fully legal, right? Like, astounding and truly incredible. So that means any canon that is written for Tolkien belongs to Dungeons and Dragons, in my humble opinion, right? Because they're one product. Like, they're printing it. Like, it's coming to us right now. Or like, it's truly astounding, right? So the Barad-Dur set. Let's talk about it, right? Here's what I'm telling you. I am the only person on the planet who understands who understands Dungeons and Dragons canon. And you're like, wait a second, Scott, that can't possibly be right. It's right. It's right. I'm the only person on the planet who understands Dungeons and Dragons canon. Why would that be? Well, I am a purple unicorn. I am something extremely rare. I'm not sure there's anybody else in the world like me. Let's get into this. I'm an evangelical Christian. I understand sacred canon to the bone, right? Like, I get it. I was 4 years old when I sat under my first Baptist, in a Southern Baptist church, and I've been studying, sacred canon for literally 5 decades, for exactly as old, because I'm 54 years old. I have studied sacred canon for as long as Dungeons and Dragons has been alive, right? Now, the word canon is used with Dungeons and Dragons, right? And now, Lego and Dungeons and Dragons, Tolkien and Dungeons and Dragons were the same thing from day one. That used to be a question mark. It used to be an asterisk. It's not going to be an asterisk as soon as we get that book in June. It's going to be proven, in my humble opinion, right? Like, they're like, oh, yeah, of course. Like, Gary Gygax systematized Tolkien's work, and Tolkien has been official to Dungeons and Dragons since day one. On day one, it was a crime, but it was still official, right? Like, it is astounding what's happening. It is truly incredible what is happening, right? Just really out there, the stuff we're seeing. It is truly shocking, right? So, oh my gosh. So canon, right? Like, there's a secular canon in Dungeons and Dragons, right? Now, the thing is, it's so complicated, and people have agendas when they come to it. Like, a Hasbro executive is like, how much money is this? I don't care about canon. I care about cash, right? How much is this going to make? And then designers are like, I really want to make a good D&D canon hardback. I want to make a good D&D canon hardback. And I'm really concerned about the D&D part and the hardback part, right? I'm not so much concerned about the canon part as you are, Scott. But here I am, I'm just sitting, I'm like, you guys aren't getting this, right? And you could see this on the Lego Icons 10333. It is astounding what's happening. True, like I cannot explain to you the ramifications of what is occurring right now. So let me explain this, okay? So the designers on the Lego Icons 10333 Lord of the Rings Barad-Dur set, they come in, right, and they create new canon in the Dungeons & Dragons, in the Tolkien world. But they just wanted to create a Lego set. They barely even understood that they were doing it, right? They knew they were authorized by Tolkien's estate to do it. They did understand that. They didn't understand the ramifications of it, right? Like, you're writing new pages into the Lord of the Rings, right? Then they reprint this book every 3 years, right? So the 3 years from now, do they just put in everything that was built in the canon set, in the canon Barad-Dur set, which is not only establishing new canon in Tolkien's work, but in Gary's work, in my humble opinion, right? Fascinating. Here's the issue, right? Okay, when these two designers showed the Barad-Dur set to the press, right? They showed it, and I was like, oh, that looks amazing. That looks fantastic. But the Barad-Dur tower is too short. Right? I said this in my mind. I'm like, the scale's off. And I've already done a video that got thousands of views about the scale is off on the gelatinous cube. Scale is becoming an issue with Lego, right? Like, we know things in Dungeons & Dragons because of the books, right? But Lego's like, well, this is really the scale because the scale is really all determined by the custom minifigure, right? Do you guys understand that? And you're like, I think I understand what you're saying, right? You know, the Lego custom minifigure is massively impacting Dungeons & Dragons right now, right? So I looked at it, I'm like, that tower should be taller, right? Well, guess what the Lego Barad-Dur set designers did? They did this, and then they laughed, and everybody in the room laughed because they didn't know what was happening. And when people do something profound, people laugh or cry, right? And they didn't understand what was happening was incredibly profound, right? You're like, wait a second, what are you talking about? So what they did was they took the Lego Barad-Dur set, and they said, if you have two sets, you can do this. And then they doubled the length of the tower, the neck of the tower. And then it looked appropriate. I was like, oh my gosh, that's the correct scale, right? And everybody in the room laughed, and they were like, ha ha ha, ha, it's $460. Nobody's going to spend $920 to have the correct scale. And you're like, wait a second. And I was like, wait a second. Do they understand what's happening right now? Right? Like, what is the official build? Is the official build you buy two and you use 4 neck pieces? Or is the official build you buy one and then you have the wrong scale? And right there, I understood. Like, the builders don't know what a mock is, right? They don't know what a my own creation is. They tried to create a mock for humorous purposes, a my own creation, which is a term within the Lego community. But the problem is they are official. So when they officially show it in official Lego press release, that's not a mock. That's a doc. That's a designer's own creation, which is canon, right? And where we're landing now is people are dealing with intellectual properties where every single dot and tittle, just like the sacred text, matters, right? But they don't understand that there's ramifications. And why don't they understand this? Grace Randolph said it. She was talking about the Shun Shogun, and she was like, why did they sink John Blackstone's ship? And when they did, why didn't any of his sailors dredge it out the way John Blackstone did? And she said the reason why is people don't want the burden of navigating their own ship, right? These guys want they want the excitement of what they're doing, but they don't want the responsibility of establishing new canon for 2 massive communities and millions of people who are going to be upset if they get that canon wrong, right? So this extension of the neck of the Barad-Dur tower is a canon question in Dungeons & Dragons that only I understand, right? And I'm presenting it to you because YouTube has given me a global opportunity and a global platform to discuss the most esoteric points of Dungeons and Dragons canon. And I want to say thank you to you for your patience on this incredibly esoteric point on Dungeons and Dragons canon that will hit like a lead balloon right now. But 5 years from now, everybody's going to be saying what I'm saying today. I am the Peter Zion of Dungeons and Dragons, no question. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. Nothing more, nothing less. What's important is when I get to your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.